Yeah, I could hear him before you turned it on.
Yeah, so sound check 1, 2. This is about the level I'll be talking at.
Yeah, you're pretty good. You're good.
Okay. So how do you do? Are you gonna like ask questions?
Yeah, I'm asking.
Okay.
Ready? Okay.
3 o'clock.
State your name and just talk about how it was working with Rodney in the studio.
Okay, I'm Kendall White, and I was working with Gregory Hines with WHUR, and he asked recordings, which stood for Yet Another Success Story. And Gregory approached me and says, hey, I could get Rodney to sign with us and we could do some music with him. What do you think? I said, oh man, that would be great. We could really take, DC Go-Go and put it on the map. At the time, this is like in the early 90s, we got ready to get started. Hip hop was really booming. You had a lot of artists, LL Cool J, Run DMC. You had Biggie Smalls, and all those were out there. So everyone was looking, well, where's Go-Go? And Go-Go with Rare Essence was really popping. You had DC Scorpio. Had a couple of like local hits, but we didn't have anything that was really national. And we really wanted to take something really big with Gregory Hines, who was also with the Dimensions Unlimited. He did a number of different things with WHR. He was a personality in and of himself. So, we had a chance where we could bring the talent and the connections all together at the same time, and we just thought this was a great opportunity. And Rodney was so special in terms of the way he could rap about things. We were just like delighted to work with him. So he would come over to the studio and do some work, and at that time Chuck Thompson, called Chucky, was doing work with the Backyard Band, and basically they were just getting that together. So he was a very talented musician, as we've come to know. He's worked with Mary J. Blige and Chuck Brown and Biz Markie, a bunch of different people. It all kind of came together, but as it got cut short. But we were really delighted to work with Rodney. I first met him at the Capitol Center when he was doing a show, and he had this crown, because he was really the king of DC Go-Go in terms of rap. And he was performing with Rare Essence, and he went out there and he would just take the crowd and mesmerize the crowd. And what I used to remember about him in the studio was he could take anything that we were doing. He had a concept what he was going to do. He would start off with that concept, and he could just start freestyling about any other points he wanted to make, and then still tie it back into the concept. And so his first record that we were doing was called Bustin' Out. And he was calling himself a new rapper, although he was well established in DC. It was his first record, and so basically he was going to be, busting out with a whole new different thing. And we really saw that as going to be an opportunity to really put DC Go-Go on the map as far as a national presence.
Okay. After meeting him at the Capitol Center, what made you say, "Hey, we can work with this guy"?
Well, his personality was so radiant in terms of everybody just loved him. And when he would come on, I mean, they would, what you gonna do, Fat Rodney? They doing like that. So he kind of, came out, and everyone, it was like, you have to, a go-go is something you have to experience. That's what I was told when I first got here. Because I came in, although I was from DC, I went to school in California. When I came back, we had heard, Chuck Brown and the Soul Searchers, and, Busted Loose and a few other songs like that, but nothing, Air Raid, Trouble Funk was out, but nothing that really, when I was out in California, you just didn't hear it. So when I got back here, I was old enough now to go out to the Go-Go, so I wanted a chance to go to the Go-Go over here at, I think it was RSVP over here on Waterside Mall back in the day, and would go out there. I started meeting people like DJ Cool, and so it was a movement. So when Rodney came on the scene, he was a very recognizable. His presence as an individual was as big as some of the bands of the time. Trouble Funk, Rare Essence, and Chuck Brown. Those were the major bands that we had. You had DC Scorpio. They were all good, but nothing held people's attention like Rodney. So it was pretty amazing.
Now the work with Rodney, were you guys going to do an independent label, or were you shopping his stuff to a major label once you were done recording?
We were going to start off as an independent label, and basically we were going to go ahead and start to build a brand here in the DC area, and then hopefully get to have a publication, you know, a promotion and distribution deal. Much like, you know, when most people don't know maybe that Def Jam, for example, was their own independent label, but they got picked up by Columbia, just like, you know, Fourth and Broadway, Island Records, all those companies were out there. And a lot of times you got a bigger piece of the pie if you had your own label and you did your own thing and built it up to a certain level. Then you could more or less dictate the terms that you had, as opposed to just going off, signing an artist off to somewhere like that. So we wanted to build our own thing with Gregory Hines involved and WHUR support. We felt as though we had a real good opportunity to do that and build one of the, you know, major labels here right out of the DC area.
Okay. As far as production and recording, was Bustin' Out the only song that you have recorded of Fat Rodney, or is there some sitting on a DAT or a DAT somewhere?
No, that was really as far as we had gotten. We had started working on that, putting the music together. He was very particular about what his song was going to be, and he wanted to make sure all the music was tight. So what we did was we worked on the music. Chucky would come over, Rodney would come over. We'd work on it. We got it just like he wanted to. And we were actually, what we put out was actually work in progress because we hadn't really fully finished it. He just wanted to lay down some tracks, and if you listen to the track on the longer extended version of it, you could hear him in the studio just kind of playing around. Actually, in one part he did some singing and stuff like that, so it was all good. And in fact, he was just in the as he said, he was in the basement freestyling, and so he did a number of different things there during the course of that recording session. And we ended up having to try to edit that down to make a radio version, as well as the longer version we just put out unedited.
Okay. Did his demo single ever get in the hands of any of the DJs? Yeah,
we started playing it. Obviously, it came out after everything had happened. We had to go up. At that time, it was not like today where you could just take a DAT, make it into a CD. You had to go up to a pressing plant, go get it mastered, go get it struck, test pressings, the whole 9 yards. So it was a multi-week process. So it took us a little bit of time to get that going after things had happened. So it didn't pan out like we would have liked to. Obviously, with the tragedy, was so devastating to me personally that I pretty much started to get out of the business. I mean, at that point, I was on such a high, knowing that we had Rodney, we were working with Rodney, we were getting ready to do what we were going to do with him, and then all of a sudden to have that just taken away, I personally just never really recovered from that and pretty much got out of the business shortly thereafter.
How did you find out about Rodney's death?
Gregory called me. Gregory, he had actually went to, it was a Friday night, I believe. Gregory worked the overnight shift, I think, at WHUR, and at the time, I don't think we had cell phones really at that time, but Gregory called me and said that, hey, did you hear? I said, no. He said that Rodney is dead, and I said, oh no. And so I got up, actually, I was like 3 o'clock in the morning. It was over at Crystal Skate, and I, made it over there and, just saw, the aftermath, and I was just devastated. And because Gregory was actually going to go, after his shift, go over there with him, but he had to go do something else prior to that. So that's how I'd heard. So Gregory had called me, and again, like I said, we didn't have cell phones then, so it was like, he called me at home. I was already in bed, and I was like, I couldn't believe it. I just couldn't believe it when it happened. It was in a daze for quite a while.
How do you think Rodney would have changed the landscape of music in DC had he lived?
Oh, I think it would have been, DC go-go music would be more accepted because, when you travel around the country, people tend to like songs with structure, and I think he had the ability to put structure together as well as create that hook line. I mean, right now in DC, you have the call response and a lot of the songs that people really enjoy here, but when you go out on a national scene, you have to have more of a structure to the song. He brought that to the song. I think that would have made his songs more popular. If you look at how, Doing the Butt, how that was really popular, I'm Getting Ready by Dougie Fresh was really popular. I think he would have had that magnitude. And I think DJ Kool, when he did, Let Me Clear My Throat and a couple other songs, but I think with Rodney and Chucky, that combination together would have put would take a go-go to a whole other level, because he could do some things lyrically and rhythmically with his voice that no one else really was able to do, and that's what I think made him so popular.
Okay.
So just in closing, let me just say that it was such a pleasure to know him and to meet him. A lot of times when I had a regular job, so I would come home from work and he would be there. Him and Chuck would be sitting there talking to my mom. And my mom would say, "Oh, what a nice young man," and we would go out and she was like, she didn't know all the things we were doing, but she just said that he was just so personable, because he sat there and just talked to her, made her feel good, made the whole family good. His presence just lit the whole place up, and so we really enjoyed working together. Again, I just if you could dial back the hands of time and go back and do that again and recapture that moment, especially given where hip hop was at that time, I think that he would be known as one of the top artists of all time. In reference to the Tupac, the Biggie Smalls that are out here today. And so it's just unfortunate that we didn't get to that level of have a body of recordings that could have been done, because a movie of his life and things like that would have been made, I'm sure. And it's just unfortunate, but God works in mysterious ways, and hopefully through what we're doing here today, people can remember who he was and what he did and what he meant to this community. And I just may God continue to bless him and his family.
Thank you.